Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Buckley has just shed some light on a secret injury that Pendlebury was carrying throughout the final series, and it's not the calf. It's time to talk all things black and white. So I wanted to share this snippet from SEN today with Buckley, speaking on an injury that Scott Pendlebury was dealing with throughout the course of the final series. My reason being is to highlight the fact that we don't know as much as we think we do. I mean, we spoke about should we risk Bobby Hill and so on and so forth, and we tend to forget sometimes that players are carrying injuries all the time. So while we might think it's just Myercheck and it's just Bobby Hill, there's more to it. And I guarantee there's probably more to it there as well. I mean, we weren't privy to Bruzzy carrying a foot issue at times last year. Same with Tom Mitchell until he'd pretty much rubbed himself out for the rest of the year. So these things we don't hear make it hard for us to evaluate what's going on and who should be selected and who should we take a calculated risk on because of these reasons. And we'll just, I guess, tackle this video and we can talk about it from point to point.
Didn't go into the game with the calf. So Pendles didn't go into the game with the calf. He had adductor tightness out of the Melbourne game, the last round. So they had 2 weeks into the qualifying final and then 2 weeks in the prelim. So he's had 4 weeks where he's been on lighter duties, and this is Pendles anyway.
And just to make a point on that, so carrying an adductor injury coming out of the Melbourne game, which was grueling and it was a massive comeback game, we did make the observation that Pendles was in the rehab group at times over the last few weeks, but just because of his age, much like many other players throughout the course of the year, we just assumed he's just on lighter loads for the reason that pertains to his age. So we didn't think much into it, did we? So that was something that was interesting to hear.
Lighter duties due to an adductor issue in his left leg. So he hasn't done as much training as he normally would, and leading into the qualifying final had that same issue, didn't do a lot of training, made sure that was fine, and then played and got through the qualifying final, which is a perfect lead in to assuming that you can roll in and do the same into a preliminary final.
So they're incredibly precautious going into the qualifying final, a real calculated approach, and it pays its dividends. Pendles had a good game against Adelaide. He gets through unscathed, and he's feeling better going into the game against the prelim than he did in the qualifying final. Now, a lot of feedback from the game after the fact against Brisbane was Pendles was selfish, this, that, and the other. It's been made clear here that he wasn't carrying a calf going into the game, despite the potential footage that we see throughout the warm-up. I mean, what can we possibly make of that other than it may have just been another conversation on his groin? Who knows? But that's something we probably won't ever know. But this is all straight from the horse's mouth. This is Buckley having a conversation with Pendles last night at Crown, allegedly, but it's Pendles and Bucks. Why would Bucks blatantly lie on one of the biggest media outlets in Australia when it comes to AFL? I don't think he would do something like that. And yeah, it's just I don't subscribe to the narrative that Pendles was being selfish. The reality is, in these long, arduous winter seasons of AFL, players are going to be carrying niggles and they're going to be sore. No one's ever 100%, and we can't just mull over who should have played, who shouldn't have played. He was injured, he was this, he was that. You've got to live and die by the sort of these decisions that you make. And I think going into the game, if this was made known to us, that Pendles may have been carrying an injury into the game, whether it be a groin or a calf, I know for a fact myself, I want Pendles on that field. He's our general, and we saw what it was without him. So, and I don't think anybody could come anywhere near to do a job that he can do in the way he guides the team structurally as well, and his his nous to be able to evade and everything else. That's just a bonus at this point of his career.
So the images we saw of I ran into Pendles at the Crown, at a restaurant at Crown last night, incidentally. So the issues that you've got sort of going in are the same. So if you've been able to handle it 2 weeks later, well, then you'd assume that you'd be able to handle it 4 weeks later. So that's what Collingwood did. Went through a run through late in the week. Did the pre-match stuff to make sure that to tick it off. Yep, feel good. That was what the vision of the conversation with the conditioning coach was.
There you go. So just to my point before, we do know what that conversation was about. It was regarding essentially a fitness test to ensure that his groin is good to go leading into that, or in the warm-up leading into the first bounce of that game against Brisbane.
Or the doc. The leg felt brilliant. Felt so much better than it did going into the qualifying final. Problem is that you do get imbalance, and old guys sort of have these issues at times. And the left leg felt great, but the right leg, he said it tightened up. 2 minutes into the game, he went to push off, it tightened up and became debilitating. This is the first game in Scott.
Just before he goes into this next one, but he ticks the box. And the reality is, like, with injuries, when one side is compromised, the other side will typically compensate and something gives way. That is just the nature of how our body works, unfortunately. Our body does an extremely good job at compensating for one half, but at some point, you're asking for too much in the end. And unfortunately, we just fell short of the mark there.
Pendlebury's career that he has not finished due to soft tissue.
Can we say that again? Let's hear that again.
His career. This is the first game in Scott Pendlebury's career that he has not finished due to soft tissue. 420 games of AFL football, and it's the first time that he has ever not been able to complete a game due to soft tissue. He's broken his leg a couple of times. He's had fingers. He's had concussion.
It's incredible, isn't it? That's a stat. When you walk out of the game, you can wear that with great pride. The fact that he can walk out of the one of the most toughest sports in any facet, and can say, I never walked out of a game or finished short of a game due to a soft tissue. I mean, I know he pulled out of a game in a warm-up against West Coast a few years back, but he didn't opt into that game. So there's that. And the whole, another narrative coming out of the game was, it's the old man's calf, he's finished, he's that. Well, given his long, illustrious career where he hasn't fallen on the wayside due to a soft tissue injury, and this is his first, I'd bet every dollar that he'll come back next year and will put together a large body of games. And he did that this year. I think we could all agree we probably didn't expect Pendles to play any more than 15 games this year. I'm pretty sure he only missed 2 or 3. So at age 37, to get through a season like that, I think there's reason to believe that he can go one more next season. Let's just see how this finishes off.
etc., etc. But I think it was a fair bet to think that, you know, one of your experienced players who's been there, done that, and been so sound. So the communication or the reporting of it has been a little bit off the mark. Having said that, it wasn't ideal for Collingwood at all.
I like it. Buck's coming in to bat for one of his old teammates, and one of his, he coached him. So just to clear the air and make it certain that this was the case and this wasn't the case. And I think that's important going into an off season. So we'll leave it at that. Guys, it's been a busy day. We got the Brownlow tonight as well. So I'll see you all there. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, go Pies.